to symbols of American air power, few aircraft carry the weight, the legacy, and the enduring presence of the B-52 Stratofortress. Born in the crucible of the Cold War, this massive bomber has defied the passage of time, soaring across decades not as a relic, but as a living, evolving titan of strategic warfare. First taking flight in the 1950s, the B-52 is more than just an aircraft. It is a statement of endurance, of adaptability, and of sheer destructive capability that continues to shape modern military doctrine. From a design standpoint, the B-52 is immense, nearly 56 meters across the wingspan, 48 meters long, with a maximum takeoff weight approaching 220 tons. With 8 turbojet engines slung under its wings, the Stratofortress can travel over 14,000 kilometers without refueling. And when supported by aerial tankers, its range becomes virtually global. This ability to strike from any continent to any target on Earth is what made the B-52 the backbone of America's nuclear deterrent for decades, and why it remains irreplaceable in today's strategic arsenal. But sheer size and range are just the beginning. What truly defines the B-52's combat power is its incredible payload capacity, over 31 tons of weapons. From conventional bombs and precision-guided munitions to cruise missiles and nuclear warheads, this aircraft can deliver devastation on an extraordinary scale. With modern upgrades, the B-52 can now deploy AGM-86 cruise missiles, JASSM stealth missiles, and JDAM precision bombs, transforming it from a carpet bombing relic into a 21st century platform for smart warfare. It's not just brute force, it's targeted, calculated, and efficient. Throughout America's modern wars, from Vietnam to the Gulf War, from Afghanistan to Iraq, the B-52 has remained a constant presence, a high-altitude harbinger of overwhelming firepower. During the Vietnam War, it became a nightmare for northern air defenses, particularly in the infamous 1972 Linebacker II campaign. In just over a week, hundreds of B-52 sorties rained down thousands of tons of ordnance, shaking the enemy's resolve and redefining the stakes of negotiation. Despite suffering losses to dense anti-aircraft defenses, the aircraft proved remarkably durable, returning from missions battered but unbroken, mission after mission. Then came the Gulf War in 1991, Desert Storm. From remote bases like Diego Garcia, B-52s flew missions lasting over 30 hours, launching waves of bombs deep into Iraqi territory. These long-distance sorties demonstrated not only the bomber's range, but its relevance in modern warfare. Iraqi defenses crumbled under the psychological and physical pressure of B-52 attacks, which crippled infrastructure, paralyzed command centers, and broke the will of frontline troops. The message was unmistakable. Nowhere was safe from the reach of this flying fortress. In today's era of high-tech warfare, where precision is prized and collateral damage minimized, the B-52 could have faded into obsolescence. Instead, it adapted. With state-of-the-art avionics, digital cockpits, advanced radar, and network combat systems, the B-52 has reimagined itself. No longer merely a bomber, it is now a launch platform for standoff weapons, a node in a wider combat network, and a flexible tool of deterrence and aggression. It can strike from beyond the reach of modern air defenses, relying on stealth fighters like the F-22 and F-35 to clear the way, and deliver its payload without ever crossing into enemy airspace. That's not outdated, that's strategic genius, and the future promises even more. The Pentagon is actively exploring upgrades that will keep the B-52 flying into the 2050s, equipping it with hypersonic missiles, laser weapons, and potentially AI-driven targeting systems. Imagine that. An aircraft first built when Eisenhower was president, still flying the flag of innovation a century later. It's not a stretch, it's a plan. Crucially, the B-52 isn't just about offense. It's also a key pillar in America's nuclear triad. Alongside land-based missiles and submarine-launched warheads, the B-52 offers something unique: flexibility. It can launch quickly, reroute in flight, abort missions if necessary, or loiter just outside enemy airspace with a full payload of nuclear deterrence. That kind of agility is priceless in a world where nuclear balance is a dance of perception, strategy, and ever-shifting threats. Some critics point to the rise of advanced anti-air systems, Russia's S-400, China's HQ-9, as a challenge to the B-52's survivability. But those critics underestimate evolution. By staying outside threat envelopes and deploying long-range precision munitions, the B-52 doesn't need to dodge missiles. It just needs to launch first, from far enough away. Coupled with stealth escorts and electronic warfare support, this grand old bomber can still fly into the heart of the storm and emerge victorious. What's more, the economics make sense. The B-52 is surprisingly cheap to operate compared to newer bombers like the B-1B Lancer or the stealthy B-2 Spirit. That affordability allows the U.S. to project power regularly without bleeding the budget dry. For all its age, the B-52 remains not just a strategic asset, but a fiscally sound one, a rare combination in modern defense procurement. In a world obsessed with what's next, the B-52 proves that longevity can be power. That staying relevant isn't about always being the newest, but about being effective, reliable, and deadly when it matters most. The fact that an aircraft conceived with slide rules and drafted on paper now fires GPS-guided munitions and interfaces with digital command networks is nothing short of astonishing. It's a testament to American engineering and to military foresight. Every time a B-52 lifts off, its engines thunder not just with raw power, but with history. Decades of missions, countless miles flown, millions of pounds of ordnance delivered. And yet, more than its past, the B-52 carries the future. It's not just a relic, it's a revolution with wings. It's the sound of steel resolve. It's the message that wherever threats arise, America has the reach, the force, and the will to respond. And that message comes roaring in at high altitude, long range, and with unmistakable power. When we speak of the symbols of American military might, few images are as iconic as the B-52 Stratofortress. A flying fortress of immense size, capable of delivering tons of bombs across continents, the very embodiment of Cold War-era power projection. Born from the strategic doctrine of nuclear deterrence, the B-52 was considered a near-invincible machine, soaring above the reach of most air defenses, protected by advanced technology and fighter escorts. Yet, in the skies over Vietnam, that illusion of invulnerability was shattered. The B-52 met its greatest challenge, not from another superpower, but from a small, determined nation that refused to bow under fire. During the Vietnam War, the United States deployed the B-52 as a weapon of strategic pressure. It was meant to cripple the North's infrastructure, disrupt supply lines, and break morale. From the U.S. perspective, B-52s flying at high altitudes with electronic countermeasures and fighter cover were untouchable. Bombs dropped in waves, indiscriminate and devastating, were expected to bring about submission. But in Vietnam, the B-52 was not met with fear. It was met with analysis, adaptation, and unyielding resistance. Vietnamese radar operators, missile crews, and air defense strategists quietly studied its flight patterns, its timing, and its electronic footprint. They turned their knowledge into action, crafting layered defenses with Soviet-supplied SAM-2 missiles, anti-aircraft artillery, and a network of early warning radars that spanned mountains and jungles. Slowly but surely, the myth of the B-52's invincibility began to unravel. Then came December 1972, the climax of America's air campaign, Operation Linebacker II, later known in Vietnam as the Dien Bien Phu in the air. For 12 days and nights, waves of B-52s took off from distant bases in Guam and Thailand, heading for Hanoi, Haiphong, and the surrounding regions. The plan was clear: overwhelm the North, bomb it into submission, and force a favorable deal at the Paris peace talks. The airstrikes were massive, methodical, and relentless. The U.S. believed resistance would collapse. But what followed was not submission. It was a storm of fire from the ground. Vietnamese missile crews, operating in silence, discipline, and grim resolve, launched salvo after salvo of SAM missiles with deadly accuracy. They had cracked the rhythm of the B-52 formations, calculated the best windows to strike between electronic jamming signals, and placed their launchers in layered depth to increase survivability. And it worked. In just 12 days, 34 B-52s were shot down, most of them over North Vietnam's densely defended airspace. The wreckage of these titanic bombers fell into rice fields and city streets. Some crashed in the heart of Hanoi itself, their flaming fuselages marking the skyline with plumes of smoke and pride. For the United States, it was a staggering loss. not only in hardware and airmen, but in prestige. This was the first and only time in history that the B-52, the backbone of American air power, suffered such concentrated destruction. Its aura of untouchability was gone. And with it, the myth that overwhelming air power alone could dictate the terms of peace. The Vietnamese people, under siege from the sky, did not falter. Amid falling bombs, radio stations kept broadcasting, air defenses kept launching, and civilians carried on their lives with unbroken spirit. It wasn't just a military defense, it was a national act of defiance. And the message was clear: bombs alone cannot crush will. In the aftermath, the tables at the Paris negotiations turned. The US, having exhausted the logic of escalation, was forced to accept terms that would eventually lead to their withdrawal. Vietnam had not only withstood the B-52, it had struck a blow that would ripple across American military thinking for decades. The defeat wasn't just in the aircraft lost, it was in the failure of a doctrine. Strategic bombing had met its match, not in technology, but in ingenuity, patience, and human determination. After Vietnam, the US Air Force reevaluated its doctrine. It realized that no weapon, no matter how advanced, guarantees victory if it underestimates the resolve of the opponent. The B-52 would go on to serve in other conflicts, more modern, more measured, with smarter munitions and support, but never again with the same blind confidence it carried into Vietnam. The lesson had been learned at great cost. And yet, the defeat of the B-52 over Vietnam stands today not just as a Vietnamese victory, but as a universal story. A reminder that even the most formidable force can stumble when it fails to respect the strength of the human spirit. In the battle between technology and will does not always lose. In those December nights of 1972, under a burning sky and the thunder of falling giants, Vietnam proved it.